Cool, so knowing what we know now about map, maybe it makes more sense instead of using each to rewrite this using map. So that's our next step, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to get started with translating this each function into a map function that saves all of our animal objects into our farm. All right, so what's the first thing that we need to do here? Maybe do underscore dot map. What are we going to map over? Do you know, John?
The animal names.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I ran out of animal names. So we're mapping over the animal names. What function do we want to put here?
Speak.
What is it?
Speak.
No. Oh, this is speak. No, we definitely want to call animal maker somewhere.
Map calls it for you. If you just pass in animal maker, map is going to call it with the name.
That's true. Let's do it out the long way, and then we'll clean it up. So we're passing. What's being passed here?
Name of the animal.
Yep. And then what do we want to do next?
Call animal maker with that name.
Yep, absolutely. Name. And then what else? There's a couple small minor things that we need to do.
Well, we got to put it in the farm.
Yeah.
You can do farm equals.
And then one last but very, very important thing.
Return.
Yep, we need to return it. Awesome. So now we see we've kind of condensed a line or so. We have our animal names, and we're passing each name, and we're returning it, and now we don't have to do this extra operation, which is pushing it to the farm. It just happens automatically, which is awesome. And as John, mentioned, we can even go a step further and just not even have this function, and we can just put animal maker directly here. And then it will just call it with the name as the first parameter. So in fact, we could just leave it like that. And that's even shorter. And then we can see, if you understand the mechanics of how map works, you know already that you're using animal names and you're making an animal with each animal name. So that even makes it more clear to yourself when you're looking back on the code and you're like, what does this code do again? I forgot. Or to your colleagues who are going to pick up your code after you. And map's super common. Everyone pretty much uses it and should understand it.
So I'm confused by what the return value of animal maker is. I mean, it's an object, right? But what, I guess I'm confused how this is working.
Sure. So whatever this function returns is going to be stored as an array. And then we're going to store that array is going to be farm. So map here is going to return an array of whatever the callback function returns. So our callback function is animal maker. So for the first loop, the first iteration with Sally, we're going to call animal maker. We're going to pass the value, right? The value is Sally, so it's the name, to the animal maker. We enter into this function body, and it's returning an object with one property on it. That's a property called speak, and which is a function that all it does is console.log my name is, and it says its name.
But we're not calling speak, right?
No, you're not calling speaker. You're calling animal maker, and it's returning.
We're not
This
doing
object.
anything with the animals once they get back into the farm array.
Not yet.
So that's why I think we're kind of struggling with, the
Yep.
name of the function is animal maker, yet it's really making
It's making
objects.
animal objects.
Oh, so it's storing the animal objects in the array.
And we're giving our animals the ability to speak.
Speak.
So if we never use this function, we'd all have just like really quiet animals, which might be better. I don't know.
Now, if you did access, let's say, the first index of the farm list, it'll basically spit out in the console, hi, my name is whatever that first tally or whatever.
So we can just go ahead and delete this, and we can run this code, and we can kind of look at it. And so it's important wherever you're running this code that you have the underscore library included, because it's a library. If you just run it on any site, these methods aren't available. But luckily, we know for sure that the underscore library site has underscore on it. That'd be funny if it didn't, but. And so let's check out our farm. So we see our farm is 3 different objects with a speak function on it. And then if we wanted someone in our farm to speak, what we could do is we could say the first one dot speak, and it says my name is Sally. And then we could try the next one, and it will say their name like that. And we can investigate. It's just an object with one property, speak. Was that clear? And for those on chat who are asking about the explicit return, we are explicitly returning something here. And then also inside of the map underscore map function, it's also returning in there. So then let's talk about the difference between each and map. So the important thing to note is that each, like I mentioned before, you can't return anything from each. So each would be something better suited for getting each animal to speak, versus if you wanted to have it return something, like especially if you wanted to return an array, map is a better bet. However, if you don't want it to explicitly return an array, maybe you want it to return an object, you might want to wrap each into a function where it pushes to an object instead. So then we can run all of our code, or let's get some more names. Let's see, Kim, John.
So if I wanted to map that into, if I wanted to use each to map it into an object, I still have to make a function, but I don't have to iterate because each does that for me, and just push it onto that object.
Yeah, exactly. However you want to implement it, but map is always going to return an array.
Right.
Yeah.
Question is, the prior example had an explicit return on animal maker. Why the difference?
What's an explicit? What do they mean by explicit return?
When you use map, you have to have return, but when you use each, you don't use return.
Yeah, when you use each, you can't use return. Each doesn't return anything, but map, you have to use return. Whatever is returned from that callback function is then going to be put into the array. So it's really important that whenever you're using map that you're actually returning something, otherwise you're going to get an array of undefined. So if I didn't return here, we'd get, and we still mapped over it, we'd get an array of 3 values, 3 undefined values. So we need to make sure that we return in that callback function. Whereas the animal, for the animal.speak, is fine because we're not returning anything there. We're just console.logging.
They're a little bit behind us, but the prior map example didn't have a return.
Or maybe did I miss the return?
I think when we did that one, it didn't, I think what they're saying is when you did the map with var farm, there was no return there. Is that, I don't know, maybe that's what they're.
Like this. There needs to be a return. So if there wasn't a return, I made a mistake. Here, animal maker name. So you have to return here. Because what this is saying is, so animal maker returns something, and then you're returning whatever animal maker returns. So that's why there's 2 returns here. So I hope that answers the question. Okay. Cool. We're right on time again. Awesome. So just a quick recap each. We can't return anything. Map, we have to return something. And it returns into an array. Did you have another question, Mark?
So I think, yeah, they're just saying that by just putting animal maker there, that implicitly has the return.
It explicitly has a return inside animal maker.
Right, but on that map, I think the last example,
The short version?
the short version just had animal maker, so that implicitly does a return, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's important that you actually explicitly return something inside of animal maker. That's the difference.
Since animal maker's already returning something, you didn't need that intermediate anonymous function to return the value of calling animal maker, because it already did that.
Yeah, exactly.